Welcome to Unity of the Seacoast for Sunday, March 12th. We welcome you, friends old and new, near and far, and we're glad you made it. Thank you, Barbara Whitney and the choir of angels singing behind her, the invisible angels. We welcome you if you are a dedicated to being a positive path to spiritual living, to awaken oneness with God within us all. Yeah, I'm a little running fast this morning, sorry. So, and this year, we invite you to please join us in searching within ourselves and without in the world around us to find what actionable things can we do to express that to being a nurturing community, being a positive path to spiritual living, and to awaken the God, Christ spirit within each of us. So come up with any great ideas. I'd love to talk to you about them later. We have many paths to God, and I'm going to go on the first Monday of the month at 7 p.m. We have an online meditation. It's a brief thing, and I'm skipping ahead to that a little bit because it's going to be the Monday before Easter, and so the meditation will be Easter meditation at that point. And in Unity, we tend to focus more on the resurrection, the overcoming of death, rather than the crucifixion. So I'm looking forward to that. And each morning when we wake up, we have the opportunity to resurrect ourselves and begin the day at the life anew. So we'll be focusing on that meditation. We have a web page called unityoftheseacoast.org. On that web page, you can find information about what's going on, and you can also find, I tried it this morning and all the buttons work. I'm so excited. There's a button to log on to the Facebook page from there, onto the YouTube page from there, and also our meetup page. I don't know about you, but I've gone to many, many websites that have links to things, and there are roads that lead nowhere. It's like driving on a highway in Seattle. There's one that just goes up and stops in the air. It's very exciting, but I've never completed the trip on that one. So on our webpage also, we have our weekly announcements. We have our talks archived there. You can also find talks archived either on Facebook or YouTube. And very exciting times we live in. So also there on our webpage is our donate button. We are aiming to continue to be able to expand and broaden our reach in the community for that, creating a positive path to spiritual living and awakening oneness. And so if you are feeling lifted up to join us in that, we welcome either a donation through the webpage on It's Tithely is the platform that does that. And if you are better at doing things physically like me, then you could send a check to Unity of the Seacoast at the McConnell Center in Dover, New Hampshire. And that's Suite 246 at 61 Locust Street in beautiful downtown Dover. And then we have a couple of upcoming services we're looking forward to. On the 19th, next Sunday, it will be called Why Do Differences Trigger Us? We're going to examine why differences trigger us, and as we work through our year of inclusion here, from physical to emotional, religious, and political differences. He's going to cover the spectrum here, I guess. On the 26th, we'll take a look at the book of Isaiah. And that's the book that's credited with predicting Jesus. And we'll also be looking at its treatment of women in this Women's Month. Very exciting. Speaking of Women's Month, we also have a poetry group that meets here monthly. And that is on the third Saturday of each month at 2 p.m. It's hosted by Shane Moran, a magnificent local poet. And we're exploring some new ground. He usually brings in one or two pieces that we look at together and discuss before we get around to sharing our own works, if we are so inclined. And at some point, we may end up doing a little bit of writing through it as well. But the theme for this month is Women's History. So that'll be next Saturday, the 18th, 2 p.m., usually 2 to 4, something like that. If we get a lot of people, we'll stay longer. And let's see, April 2nd, we look at the meanings of Maundy Thursday and Good Friday. And on April 9th, Easter. We are Easter Eden right here. Let's see, another exciting thing that just started this month is Game Night, which is on the first Friday, and that's at 6:30. 6:30 instead of 7. Good. Okay. So it starts at 6:30 and it goes until we all drop. And we had a blast. There were 10 people playing apples to apples, and there was a game of Uno Flip going on and some cribbage. So it's board games, cards, whatever you're interested in. If you have something to bring it. And if you don't, there's something here to do. It was a delightful community gathering we had light refreshment, I would say. Yeah, and that's what we're all about here is the light refreshment. Okay. Let's see. And is there anybody here who can tell me what the word namaste means? Here at Unity, we think it means the Christ in me sees and honors the Christ in you, or the light in me sees and honors the light in you. And we celebrate that with one another by putting our hands together in prayer position in front of us, bowing slightly, if you're inclined, looking in the eyes and saying, Namaste. Namaste. And if you don't have anyone at home with you, namaste. It's the best day. Well, next, I would like to bring back the wonderful Barbara Whitney.
God of the moon and stars, God of the moon and stars, God of the billion single bars, God of the fragile hearts we are, come to you. God of our history, God of the future, what will be? What will you make of me? I come to you. God of the meek and mild, God of the reckless and the wild, God of the unreconciled, I come to you. God of our life and death, God of our secrets unconfessed, God of our every breath, I come to you. God of the rich and poor, God of the princess and the whore, God of the ever open door, I come to you. God of the war and peace, God of the junkie and the priest, God of the greatest and the least, I come to you. God of the refugee, God of the prisoner and the free, God of our doubt and certainty, I come to you. God of our joy and grief, God of the lawyer and the thief, God of our faith and unbelief, I come to you. God of the wounds we bear, God of the deepest dreams we share, God of our unspoken prayer, I come to you. God of a world that's lost, God of the lonely cross, God who has come to us, I come to you.
Thank you, Barbara. Barbara blesses us with music each week. Often it's other people's songs, but frequently she shares her own music with us, which is a great joy. And now, another joy that has been given to me is to introduce our speaker today. Reverend Tom Scheinler has, I'll say, grown remarkably in the last year as a teacher for us and in his own path. And he encourages us not to take what we hear from someone as the gospel, but to explore what we hear and find out what it means for us. And I'm looking forward to Tom's. day. Mr. Tom Shine.
Thank you, Charlie. Hold it, my friend. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to start this the way I started a couple weeks ago. What's with this whispering namaste? Can we get a big namaste? It's not like we're hiding it from the world. So 1, 2, 3. Namaste. Thank you. The reason I do that is I very clearly see the best in you shining through when I look at each one of you. Hopefully you see that with me, but I can't guarantee that, but I know I see it when I look outward towards you. Barbara, again, thank you for your choice of songs. No choir today. Both people have prior commitments, but it's also good just to hear you. So today's talk is about the presence of God in our lives. And often when we think about the presence of God being with someone, we think of someone like Mother Teresa, someone who did God's work and in all their actions. It seemed like God was present in everything she did. We think of people who help the needy, missionaries, people who cure diseases. We understand that working in God's presence in some sort of way is helping others. And this is true, of course. As we discussed last week, if we live a life and we don't help others, we are only living half a life. But as important as that is, most of our life is just everyday life. Most of our waking thoughts and our activities are just making a life that has meaning to each one of us. And this is the reason that people flock to hear Jesus. They wanted to learn how to live a life that meant something to them, the best life that they could. And for me, it's just reassuring and comforting to know that we can just step back and focus on our own life, that it doesn't have to be lofty or something unattainable. It's just living the best life that we could. We don't have to overthink it. God's presence is in our lives always, so we can just lead our best life. Jesus was the way shower. Part of that is so we understand this, that we're all human. We want to have a happy life. And although we are spiritual beings having a human experience, don't discount the human experience. We're meant to have this experience, to not completely rise above it, because there's something to be gained from this life cycle. That's why we have 5 senses. We are meant to process the world. And I had a friend a few weeks ago tell me that she looks forward to the day that she can rise above her human reactions to life. And although I understood the concept that she was talking about in the context of the conversation, because we all find things in life that are difficult and troublesome. But human reactions are very important to understanding who we are and creating our lives. Without human reactions and interactions and human expression, would we know art or music or poetry or song? Would we see the joy and the beauty in a flower or a sunset or a sunrise? Would we experience heartbreak and be able to turn heartbreak into knowing a little bit more about ourselves? Some of the best music and poetry and stuff came from heartbreak. Romeo and Juliet, the song I Will Always Love You. It's important for us to be in touch with who we are and the way that we respond when creating our life, because we develop individual interests and we decide what changes we need to make and what part of ourselves that we hold on to. We develop our own personal ways of bringing God into our lives, and we find new paths to live a Christ-like life. When I want to feel closer to God, I read the Bible. I know this seems like a logical thing, seeing that this is what I do for a living. But I don't do it for the religious aspects. I do it because I enjoy it. It's something I engage with. I'm immersed in it. I love what I'm reading and trying to interpret it. But at the same time, I also get closer to God when I play my guitar, when I work on the computer, when I ride my motorcycle. I felt the presence of God last summer when I took apart and resurrected my daughter's car into a car that I drive every day. Others feel this when they walk or garden or knit, when they cook, when they do anything. In everything we do, if we're aware of the moment, we are in the presence of God. We're closer to God when we parent or anything that we enjoy. It's not taking life for granted. This is what life is. It's using what we know and what we enjoy to build that connection. Life is all the moments. It's not just the big moments. Life is the path, not the end of the path. It's all the steps along the way. Life is living in the process. It's in these moments where we are in the presence of God. It's an athlete taking the 10,000 steps after an injury. It's the child writing its name 100 times trying to learn how to spell its name. It's in when you go home and you cook a new recipe or you cook the old one. It's finding joy in each new moment, in all that you do. In Colombia, South America, there's a people called the Muisca tribe. And during the mid-1500s, they were sought after because they had ample amounts of gold. And they lived in what they thought of as the famed city of El Dorado. That's what the Spanish thought of it. They had massive amounts of gold, and they would share it with all. Another thing they would do is they would carve these ornate beeswax figures into art. And then they would pack clay around it and melt the beeswax out and then pour in gold. And after the gold was hardened, they would break away the clay and they would have these incredible figures. And if these figures weren't right, they would break them down and do it again, all within one pouring, even the hinges and all. And then after they were done and they were satisfied with what they created, they would get rid of them. They would throw them into the lake, bury them, put them in caves. But getting rid of them to them, you're good. Yeah, that's getting rid of them to them was giving it to God. They wanted to set it away where it wasn't for other people. Now, they had so much gold, they would also, no problem giving the gold away. But that was their way of being in the presence of God. Now, the Spanish conquistadors heard about this. They heard about this golden people, and they wanted their gold. So they went and they found these people, and what they found was a city without golden walls, without gold mines. However, they did find that these people did have lots of gold. And when asked, they were given some gold. There was no greed because none of it was a possession. It was all for God. It was their connection to God. The conquistadors could never find the source of gold. What they did find was a spring of water that was so salty that it had no use. So they decided to kill and loot the village, and they took over 80 tons of gold from these people. And they never found the mines. They did stumble upon the source of the gold, but they just didn't realize it at the time, because these Muisca people would sit at the salt spring and evaporate in clay cups the water until nothing but salt remained. And when they had enough salt, they would go down the mountain and they would sell it or trade it to get gold, to come back up and build their artwork. Because they had everything they needed. They had great soil, they had abundance of food, and they were happy, and they wanted to thank God. So they would make art and give it to God, thanking Him for the abundance. And they did it with the only way they knew best was the giving of their time, their art, their dedication. And they did it from salt to gold. So what happened to much of that gold that was stolen? Well, much of it went to Spain and remained with the king, but some of it stayed in South America and was used to make religious artifacts, the church. Most notable, the Museo Iglesia Church in Santa Clara, Bogota, Colombia. All this gold, all that was made almost exclusively from this stolen gold. The altars, the ceilings, the statues, even the frames of the beautiful art were made from this. It all tells a bitter tale where this tribe gave the gold to God. Spain killed to steal, to make things for the gold, to give to God, who had already had it. Not that God needed it, but that's just the way of the thinking at the time. And if you go down the road, you see that raft in another museum, the Bogota's Gold Museum. God must have liked that the most because he preserved it the longest. But I tell you this because I want you to think not only about that, but beyond that. Think about these people, all the hours and hours spent gathering salt to sell, to buy the gold, to craft these ornaments, the hours to do that. Not for show, but to give away for the gratitude of the abundance of things they had in their life. They used their special gift to be in the presence of God. We all have individual gifts, talents, and likes and dislikes within us. And when we tap into these things, that's when we begin to realize that the kingdom of heaven is within, or available to us, or at hand. You know, when H. Emily Cady takes the phrase, God being the God of living, and she kind of explains what it meant to her. This is her idea of what it is. That we're dead inside until we tap into things that make us quicken inside, that excite us, that bring us to life. We live life from our gifts and through our gifts and become alive. You know, imagine, she used this example, imagine your most trusted friend comes to you and tells you there is a foolproof way to get all that you want out of life. It cannot fail and it never fails. And imagine, as this friend is telling you this, you're totally convinced that they're correct and they know something and they're passing it on to you. You would immediately begin to feel more alive. And that's what this saying means. God is the God of the living. It's when you realize that there is a greater power than you, and it offers you everything in all, from the physical to the spiritual, so you can become alive and create the life that you want to live. Like when you know, and you feel you're in the flow and everything is working for you. That's what this is. We are alive. We are in tune with Christ within us. We are using compassion and empathy and creativity and love. Did you ever see the video of Maya Angelou when she talks, when she first discovered that she felt God loved her? She was talking about her life in Unity. Maya Angelou was a Unity member. And it occurred to her one day, reading, that God loved her. And she teared up. And she teared up because she began to understand that she has this incredible gift and she could share it with the world with new vigor. This is what Jesus talks about. He wants to demonstrate to us God's love for us. And we get to do that by using our unique gifts. Betty White was the same. She was a longtime member of Unity and had one of the most successful careers in sharing her gift of humor. She never lost the joy of making others smile. Now, I know that these are famous examples of this, and you're thinking, well, but I've seen this in my mechanic. I've seen this in a wait staff. And I know the wait staff probably didn't think her life would be serving people and that would be her ideal job, but her gift is adding joy into each moment. I pumped gas for 5 years when I was 12 to 17, and I loved that job because I had interactions with the customers. I certainly got tired of pumping gas in the middle of winter, but I never once tired of the people that I got to meet and deal with every day. That's God's will for us. God's will is nurturing love and freedom of expression and wisdom. We all have that. Everything and all things are expressions of God, or the breath of God. And how we express, how we manifest, it varies in accordance to the measure of breath in each thing. Humans are the most interactive creation from God. The breath of God flows through us in such a unique way because we get to interact with all of life using love, wisdom, compassion, empathy, and creativity. A squirrel, like us, can store food, but we can make the house and the can or the jar to store it in. I've said this before, we were the only creature who can routinely open up the body of another of our species or another species and heal it. We get these magnificent choices. A giraffe doesn't look at its surroundings and think, let's just pack up the family and move to South Beach where it's warm and there's no lions going to kill us. But we get to make choices in our day for the betterment of ourselves and the world around us. Because we as humans have this wonderful gift to be an individual expression of God, and we get to use this gift in our own way. And when we do that, we're working with the presence of God. When we add love, wisdom, empathy, and compassion, we're working from our Christ-like nature. And we do it from a human perspective, and that's so wonderful. You know, the human perspective does matter. If it didn't matter, our spirit would have skipped this whole life cycle. You know, last week I touched on that saying, what you intended for evil, God meant for good. That's alchemy at its best. And we'll just shorten that up. God meant for good. That's the truth of the statement. Our purpose here is meant for good. And that is always true. Whether you use this gift for good or not, that's up to you. But it is the truth. We are here for good because the presence of God is within us. And even when we don't believe that it's there, it's there. With that spark of divinity in us. So if God is in each of us, then we are perfect and we are connected always. That spark of divinity is our guiding force for us to be a creative force in building our lives for ourselves and the betterment of the world around us. Now, if you want to be a plumber, then be one. The spark of divinity is going to guide you and help you. Your choice doesn't have to be at one level and you think I'm not there. Your choice is your choice. Your dreams and your desires are what you want to be. God doesn't think of reasons why or why not. Doesn't place limits. You decide that. You accept that you're either unlimited potential or you have limits. We only limit ourselves by the limits that we accept for ourselves. Charles Fillmore talks about the 12 powers. 2 of the powers he has is zeal and enthusiasm. Think about that. Those simple little characteristics are in each one of us to help build our life. And we get to tap into these things. We are tapping into us that's a part that's connected with God. We get to look at our lives and decide the attitude that we're going to chase our life with and what we're going to build. Did Jesus understand that? I think he did. I think he understood God's presence and to use our gifts. His gift was of himself. He shared it in his words, his actions, his deeds, his parables, and even in his weak moments. Now maybe you're thinking, well, Tom, that's Jesus, and he's on this level and we're not quite there. I believe that we can all be quite there. But I'll go with you. Fair enough. It's tough to put ourselves up there. So we'll think of the people that he chose to use for their gifts. Let's begin with Peter. Peter was a fisherman, a stinky job. He met him while cleaning his nets after an unsuccessful night of fishing. So by all appearances, he's not good at his job. But Jesus saw a man who had a gift. Started as a simple gift, just the ability to hold a boat steady while Jesus spoke. But as their relationship developed, Peter's gift kept revealing themselves over and over. And we get to do that for ourselves. Mary Magdalene, in her he found a true friend who studied and trusted in his words. And how do we know this? Because in his darkest, most dangerous moments, she stood by him, walked by nearby, stayed until his death, and found him after his death, knowing that she could easily be killed for being associated with him. Or we look at Paul. Paul was someone who persecuted Jesus' followers. Now you would think he is as far away from Jesus' concept of being in the presence of God. But according to the Bible, Jesus found favor in him, and he became one of the torchbearers for Christianity, maybe the second most influential torchbearer beyond Jesus. And the people that he taught, the people that he healed, the people that followed him, those people are like us too. They're just people living day-to-day life, trying to create a life in the best way that we see fit. These are the same people. He didn't judge them. If he was a judgmental being in that fashion, nobody would flock to hear him. No one wants to come here and be picked apart about their life. They just want to learn to make it better. And he gives us those steps. And in those steps, he's teaching us how to be in the presence of God, to be familiar with God. He wants us to understand that familiarity. And how do we know this? Because it's in the way that he talks to God. Luke 22:42. He says, Father, if it is thy will, as if he's having a conversation, remove this cup from my lips or from me. Nevertheless, it's not my will, but yours. And he expects us to be at that same level of familiarity. And again, how do we know this? Because he teaches us to pray with those two simple words, our Father. He's telling us to recognize that we are always in the presence. And we get caught up in erosion or corruption of who we are, our spiritual selves. We believe that we cannot attain this level of familiarity with God. We cling to things that others have taught us, or the things that we've chosen to believe about ourselves. We've prayed to God for answers or considerations and hope he finds favor in us. We've feared that if we are wrong, God may punish us. Or that if our prayers don't get answered, we just wipe it away to going, God works in mysterious ways. Or we look at God's will as going against us. It wasn't God's will, so we didn't do it. It didn't happen for me. But it's not God's will to punish us. It's not God's will to have us live in illness or depression or insecurity. God's will is not to deny us the things that we dream or need until God decides you are worthy of consideration. We are always worthy of consideration. God's will is to manifest everything in exact ways, to bring into existence substance in all, because God is the fulfillment of life through the fullness of love, incarnate wisdom. Each one of us is as worthy as the next. You know, God's not that deciding judgmental being. That's Hebrew Testament stuff, which is not an actual truth. It's a story of a people. In the same way, Jesus' story is a story of a people. But we look at the truth in the words. You know, I look at his words and actions and decide if they are true. And by that, I mean true for me. He teaches us to look for the lesson in the story. That's the idea of a parable. The story itself may not be true, but the lesson is true. And often it's true for the individual person. That's why it's allowed for us to be interactive, why it teases us to think on our own, to come to a conclusion. I personally believe he was a real person. His account may not be the most accurate, because there's always differences from gospel to gospel, from story to story. But I believe the man is there, and that's why I can take what he says at face value. Things like, these things that I've spoken to you, that my joy might remain in, and that your joy will be full. I believe what he is saying by this example is he wants us to feel what he feels until we feel it inside of us. Whether his story was true or not, that does not make that statement, love thy neighbor as thyself, less true. So learn these lessons, take them for yourselves, learn to bring God into, be present with God. And God is that thing that helps you create. Well, we all have those moments. We have those moments when we use a special gift. I do that when I talk to my plants. I name my plants. She laughs at me, but I name my plants. My gift is loving them. Their gift is just thriving so I can see the beauty. I felt this joy when I've learned to play a new song on my guitar. Now, granted, it's not a new song. If I'm playing, it's 40 years old. But it's new to me. I've learned it, felt this joy when I've fixed a car and I hear it start up. When I fixed an outlet or I've repaired a shower. Today, when you go home and you make dinner, feel that joy. You're in the presence of God. Whether it's a new recipe or an old, whether you're stopping to shop on your way home, you're in the presence of God. Whether you get home and you put your feet up and take a nap, you're still in the presence of God. These are moments for you to enjoy. Who doesn't enjoy a nap? Maybe a 3-year-old, but beyond that, we get to that point where everything has its meaning for us. Take time to notice the fullness in each moment. One of the tricks I do often is I'll cut into an orange or a lime. I have never been in a bad mood when I smelt citrus rising up from fresh cut fruit. We all have these triggers in us, triggers of joy that bring us back into the moment. When I opened up, I spoke of Mother Teresa doing God's work, to be in the presence of God. But I hope you guys understand that all that you do in any given moment, if you open up to it, you are in the presence of God. You get to enjoy the process. You get to love the process. Maybe it wasn't your thing to go out and work on something that day. Maybe you didn't plan on being stuck in traffic. Turn on the radio, listen to a book, or just look at the world around you. There's joy in everything, no matter how it comes about. And that's what's offered to us always. The presence is within us and next to us, through us, and abounding always. Just take time to notice that. I'm going to turn this to a meditation. I'll step away for a second.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of love. I hold you in my heart. You are my family. You are the face of love. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of love. I hold you in my heart. You are my family. You are the face of love.
Thank you, Barbara. Yes. each one of you to take in a deep breath and exhale. And as we do this, develop your own comfortable breathing pace and pattern. Your feet comfortable, your arms comfortable. And find a unique posture that works for you. And as we breathe in and out, I want your mind to drift to a place that brings you comfort. Be a place you've been, or a place that you imagine. That as you sit, you know that you are whole and safe and loved. And I want you to think that I am in the presence of God when I sit. When I dream. I'm in the presence of God when I work. And when I pray. When I think of others. When I think of myself. I'm in the presence of God when my heart sings. When my heart cries. When I am bold. When I am weak. When I am strong. When I am scared. In all that I do. All that I think. And all that I desire. And I open myself up to the awareness of each moment. I know that there's only one power and one presence active in me and in the universe. God the good and great omnipresence. I think of the line from Matthew 6:24. For where your treasure is, your heart will be also. And our treasure starts in our unique expression. Be an expression of God with love, compassion, empathy, and wisdom. and knowing that I am fully in the presence of God. And now take this moment to think of others. If you're home and you're thinking of someone and you feel comfortable, type their name or initials in the comment box. If not, just a heart emoji. And if you're here and you're thinking of someone, bring them to the forefront of your mind and your heart. If you're comfortable, say their name or initials. But it's not a requirement. I think of Jason, Preston, and Jay. Think of the world. Think of our government and the governments around the world and the people trying to manage their lives. Just to have a simple day-to-day life, to be happy in each moment. I think of those in power and who are strong, and I affirm their ability to share their love and compassion and empathy with those around them. And I think of those fighting a brave battle we may know and some we may not ever know. But to everyone we affirm wholeness, health, happiness, freedom, abundance in food, thought, spirit, water, all the things that we need to make a life happen. And we reach out to the world, from this room outward, that affirmation of love from our hearts. And so it is. Amen. I invite you guys to come back to me. I thank you. I'm going to ask Charlie if he's got a second. We do another prayer each week, tithes and offerings.
God is real, God is magnificent, God is light, God is love. God is real, God is magnificent, God is light, God is love. God is real, God is magnificent, God is light, God is love. God is real, God is magnificent, God is light, God is love.
I ask you at this moment, take your right hand, place it over your heart, and repeat after me. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Amen. Thank you. I'm going to close this service out with a prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. And we are richly blessed. I thank you all. Have a wonderful week. Join us for fellowship after. And I'm going to step away as we do our final song. Thank you.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace be with God as creator. In oneness all I will. In love walk with each other. In perfect harmony. Peace has begun with me. Let this be the moment now. With every breath I take, this truth is my joy is found.